Okay. Good evening, and welcome to the April 15th, 2025 meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We are now in session. The first item of business is the approval of the March 18th, 2025 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Prior to a vote, are there discussion? Is there
Yeah, I
discussion?
have one suggestion. On page 12 of the minutes, it's page 12 of the package, sorry, page 7 of the minutes, the second line, there's a phrase that says, "To the ordinance is necessary." I think it should read, "To the ordinance is unnecessary," instead of necessary.
Okay, will the maker of the motion accept this amendment?
Sure.
And the second? Yes. Okay, then all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand behind. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 8 of the minutes, the second full sentence says, "He said the hardship was the narrowness of the Church Street property." That is actually the narrowness of Church Street, so the word "the" and the word "property" should be deleted.
Okay. Are there any other changes, proposed amendments? Yes.
So also page 8, oh geez, a little loud there. It said that it's the first full paragraph, five lines from the bottom. She said new quarters were part of that. I believe I said new buildings.
Okay. Any other proposed changes? And will the motion maker and second accept these?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Yeah, okay. So then, all in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Before we get into the meeting, I'd just like to remind people that everyone who comes up to speak to their petition gets 15 minutes. And if you think you might need more, please let us know ahead, and the board will decide to allow that or not. And if you come up to speak to, for, or against, you are allotted 5 minutes. Okay? Under old business A, there is a request for an extension for 635 Sagamore Avenue. Is there anyone to speak to? No. Would anybody, don't we have to approve? No, we don't.
You have to approve it, but
Yeah,
there's
we have
no,
Motion?
it's just amongst you.
I know, I meant to. Would anybody like to move this extension?
I make a motion to move this extension until the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Wait, I'm confused.
No,
It's an extension request.
for a one-year extension.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
You're
But
thinking of the
just to allow
postponements.
it as
Yes.
yes,
Grant the extension.
grant the extension, yes.
Second?
Okay, so this is a request to grant the extension. Is there a discussion? Would you like to speak to your motion in any way?
Just it seems like a reasonable request, and I imagine dealing with the other land use boards and environmental regulations and stuff, it seems sensible.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
For the record, I'm abstained.
You're abstaining, yes. The chair votes yes.
Okay.
B, 39 Dearborn Street, extension request. Would anybody like to move this?
Can we ask a question of city staff? Or is it just, we just do a straight up and
You
down?
can try, yeah.
So it says here that the certificate of approval was obtained from the HDC in June 2023, and then the building permit application was filed in May 2024. So I was just wondering what that, I mean, it says that, I guess maybe they had some delays with the Conservation Commission and everything else. I just wonder what took so long between almost a year.
Without looking at the building permit, I can't, I mean, I can try to look it up, but, I don't know the sequence of what's happening with the building permit.
Okay.
I just know it hasn't been issued.
Okay, all right. Nothing further.
Motion to allow the extension request.
I move to allow the extension request for 39 Dearborn Street.
Okay, is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Mantle. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Now I would like a motion to suspend the rules to look at all the postponements. Mr. Mannell,
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second?
is there a second? Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Did
you
you
already
have more to
second.
say? Yes. No. Okay.
Take the vote for the suspension of the rules.
This suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now what we will be talking about is the requests for F through J, the request to postpone. These are all Kane Company requests for Commerce Way. And I have been told that that you may decide to take them individually or as a bunch. And that is up to whomever makes the next motion.
Make a motion to postpone to the May meeting, items F, G, H, I, and J.
Okay. Is there a second? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, Mr. Chamizo. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Then those petitions are postponed until May. Okay, new business, A.
Wasn't 636 Lincoln Ave also?
Oh, Lincoln is also on there. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so our next is for the Lincoln Avenue property. Is there a motion to that effect? Yes.
No, but I'm going to recuse myself.
Make a motion to postpone item B to the May meeting as requested.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Okay. Now, we are ready to get back to A.
Okay.
This is the request of Jason T. and Tricia Brewster, owners, for property located at 121 Mechanic Street, whereas after-the-fact relief is required for a roof sign, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.1240 to allow a roof sign where it is not an allowed sign type, and 2, variance from section 10.251 for an aggregate sign area of 191 square feet, which is greater than the maximum allowed. Said property is located on Assessment Map 103, Lot 3, and lies within the waterfront, business, and historic districts. Is there anyone to speak to this?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Mrs. Chair and members of the board, my name is Phil Pettis. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Portsmouth and living at O'Leary Place. I'm also an attorney with the privilege of representing Tricia and Jason Brewster at 121 Mechanic Street. As you know, this is an application for 2 variances relative to the Brewster's Bait and Tackle property at the rear of 121 Mechanic Street along the river. In October of 2024, the words bait and ice, and that's bait ampersand ice, were painted on one side of the roof towards the Pierce Island Bridge. At the time, the applicant was unaware that this constituted a technical definition of a sign under our zoning ordinance. So as soon as they were made aware by the city, they began the application process. And we've submitted a number of photos to you in your packet that you can see. The only area that the sign is visible is really from the Pierce Island Bridge and from the water. It's impossible or extremely difficult to see it from Mechanic Street or anywhere around Prescott Park. And in terms of the variance criteria, I think it's pretty self-explanatory what we've submitted in terms of the first 4 criteria. I thought it'd take just 1 minute. I promise you I'm not going to need the 15 minutes.
Go ahead.
But I would just take 1 minute and talk about the unnecessary hardship aspect of the application. As you know, that a property that has special conditions that distinguish it from other properties in the area, and under these circumstances, if there's a fair and substantial relationship that does not exist between the general public purposes of the ordinance, the unnecessary hardship criteria is met. In addition, the board takes into account the reasonableness of the application. Under these circumstances, this is a very unique property. It looks directly at the boat launch over at Pierce Island. It caters to local residents and also those visiting our city who are looking for bait, supplies, fishing supplies, ice, etc. And, our ordinance, our sign ordinance exists to protect our neighborhoods from hazardous, distracting displays that would cause a nuisance. This was professionally done. It's very discreet, and as I said, it only is visible from 2 areas of the city of Portsmouth. It's not the first time that a sign has been erected or painted on a rooftop in the south end of Portsmouth. We uploaded a couple weeks ago and then hand-delivered yesterday some photos of La Cava's Wharf. Has everybody received a copy of those photos?
No, I didn't.
No.
Can you pass them out to us, please?
Madam Chair, I have
Yes,
copies.
would you please pass them out? Yes.
Thank you. We can take the rest of them.
Just to the north of the Brewster property is the city pump station, and just on the other side of the pump station for many, many years has been La Cava's Wharf, which actually became dilapidated at the end of 2019 and collapsed. That property is actually a city-owned property as well. And there's one image, we're able to find actually many online, but there is one image of the words lobster, discount lobster, on the La Cava building 2 doors down from 121 Mechanic Street. So there is some precedent in terms of having rooftop signs advertising to those traversing Pierce Island into the water. So with that, I would say that the application meets all the criteria, and if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer any, and I'm here with Jason Brewster as well, if there's any questions directly for the applicant.
Are there questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Whalen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, and I appreciate your attempt at brevity, but one thing would be the spirit of the ordinance. So your aggregate sign area with this very large sign on the roof, which in and of itself is not allowed, but then the total aggregate sign area, it's allowed to be 16 square feet, and now this is adding up to 191 square feet, according to the staff report here. That's a substantial differential. What is, again, your basis for saying that this board can approve such a significant discrepancy?
Well, I guess I would say 2 things. I would say, number one, if this sign was created in a much smaller way on this particularly, large rooftop, I think that would actually look worse. It would be more distasteful, it may be harder to read, and it may be more distracting than it is, than it would otherwise be. As you know, the spirit of the ordinance is to maintain and enhance the character of the city's neighborhoods and protect the public from hazardous and distracting displays. There's no detriment to the character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood can't see the sign unless they go up and over Pierce Island Bridge. It enhances the character of the South End. The South End, as you know, has a history of fishing and other recreational water usage. It only speaks to that. It only enhances the history and the character of the neighborhood. And as far as potentially hazardous and distracting, there's a big difference between distracting and getting attention. The South End homes, the beautiful South End homes, get their share of attention. The co-op and the fishing boats going underneath get their share of attention. There's nothing distracting about the sign. It's not illuminated. It doesn't extend from the roof. It's very tastefully done. And if anybody's had a chance to drive by, I think it looks very professional.
Okay. And then on page 38 of our package, it's your introduction, the 3rd paragraph, 3rd sentence, you say, they, as in potential customers, would not know of the availability of bait, tackle, and or ice before heading out on the water without this display. I guess my challenge back to you is, it is the 21st Century, I did Google your client. They do have a website. It does not really have much in the way of directional information, but isn't that also an opportunity for your client to be able to direct people in a more modern fashion to the services that they are providing?
The internet is certainly available, and they do have a website, certainly. If you're coming to Portsmouth for the first time and your focus is on putting your boat in and getting your troops out on the water and gathering what you need, it may be the first time that you're aware of the existence of a bait shop there. There is no bait shop in that area. There are some in the region that boaters would have to travel to, but it's the only way, I guess, the purpose of that language in the application was you may not otherwise know of it because the building and the shop itself are hidden on Mechanic Street. They're not obvious. You wouldn't otherwise know if you just travel over the Pierce Island Bridge without knowing that that building and business is there. The internet is actually, sure, it's an opportunity. I can't disagree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Neese?
I just got a question about the business model here. Do customers approach and tie up at the dock aft and get bait and ice there?
Yes.
Did the owner consider a sign on that side of the building which would be visible from the Pierce Island boat ramp?
I don't know the answer whether they considered that or not. I think they're looking to get attention on the way to the boat ramp and the way back. But I don't know if they've considered that aspect of it. I think that, the discreteness of the sign as it exists, because you can only see it from two areas, the water and the bridge, is about as discreet as you can get considering the purpose of the ordinance, which is the protection of the neighborhoods.
Yes, Mr. Mattson?
Yeah, I have a two-part question. When was the sign first created, and then related to that was it repainting the sign, or was it adding it for the first time?
It was added for the first time in October of 2024.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who would like to speak for, or against? Okay. Then the public hearing is closed.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as presented and advertised.
Is there a second?
Oh, actually, Jeff's.
Well, but he beat me
It's
to it.
Mr. Mantle now.
Bunch of stuff.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me scroll down to the criteria
Okay.
again. Just give me a second. Okay, taking 10.23321 and 22 together, let me focus on the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. It's often the case that we find that people have difficulty utilizing waterfront business zoned lots to conduct waterfront business, and I do believe that it is actually promoting the public interest to allow this sign to remain where it is and enhance the prospects for this business to continue to prosper and operate so that this waterfront business district can be properly utilized as intended by the zoning ordinance. With regard to substantial justice, I think that the property owners make a good case that really this sign is not visible to a lot of residential properties in the area and is not a nuisance. I do say that there is some weight to be applied to the fact that despite the large square footage, as pointed out by Mr. Rayom, this is not a standalone sign. It's not a billboard. It's not, something that is obtrusive or intrusive in the rest of the neighborhood. So I don't see a loss to the general public that would outweigh the benefit to the property owner by allowing them to continue to utilize this sign. For the same reason of the discrete location of the sign and the lack of an additional billboard or anything, I do believe that it will have no impact on the surrounding property values. I think it adds a little bit to the quaintness of the area. It is Portsmouth does have a fishing village tradition, Sometimes that tends to get buried by the stultifying sameness of new construction, and I actually think this sign it's a nice reminder of what this town had at one time been all about. Little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Again, this ordinance, the sign ordinance, which I'm usually a pretty big stickler about, is, in my opinion, designed to prevent the area from becoming overly commercialized and just garish in its presentation to the public. I do not think this sign does that in any way, shape, or form. And so applying the requirements of the ordinance literally to the rooftop lettering it really does not achieve the purpose of the sign ordinance. And so that is my motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor,
I agree with Tom.
discussion? Mr. Ram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I will not be supporting this motion, even though you did use the word stultifying, so that almost put it over the top, but didn't quite get there. So I'm sorry, but, and I'm very supportive of our waterfront businesses. I think it's an important characteristic of our city. I think that we do, as a board, defend those properties to the maximum amount that we can. That said, I just think this falls on way short on the first two criteria, which is really, the spirit of the ordinance and keeping with the characteristics of the neighborhood. I think there are ways to accomplish what the applicant is trying to do. I think the fact that they created this and then now are asking for forgiveness has lulled us into saying, well, yeah, it's kind of okay. I'm really struggling with it. I think that some level of relief is probably appropriate for this business, but I think this giant billboard, and that's what I would call it, on their roof, is not in keeping with what we want to have, or at least what our zoning ordinance is trying to tell us what we want to have in this area. And maybe it is what we want to do in the future. That's great. Let's change the zoning ordinance to go and better reflect what we expect out of our waterfront business district requirements. But this is, I think, a stretch beyond what this board can go and approve to be able to say that it's somehow within the criteria that we are supposed to judge it by. I think it's way outside of what's allowed for the zoning ordinance. So I will be voting against it.
Anybody else? Mr. Neese?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I share some of the same concerns here. This is a balancing act to me. I'm less concerned about the fact that it's on the roof than it is by the size. This is, as was pointed out, it's over 10 times the maximum size of a sign for this area. And I'm just curious if there would be any interest on the board in splitting these two decisions and proposing a smaller size. And if there is, I'd probably make a motion to amend. But if there's not, or if the makers of the motion are steadfast against it, I wouldn't do that.
I'd be inclined to make a comment unless we want to. I'm not sure how to answer that as a board.
Yeah.
It's a question for Tom.
Also, I think we should finish with all the comments to see
Okay.
before we might consider that. Is that okay?
Okay.
Before I respond to Mr. Neese's suggestion, I would like to see if the motion as presented has support on the board.
And I would agree with that. Mr. Mattson?
So yeah, just for my thoughts is I similarly I agree with some of the comments of Mr. Rayum. I guess for me the dissuading factor, or there's a few dissuading factors. Dissuading is the wrong word. The convincing factors for me were that one big thing to me is that the roof plane needs to be there no matter what, and so it's not like it's a new plane that is a sign. Like as an example, billboards are typically vertically oriented, which can be a lot more imposing, like a wall, whereas this roof was already there, and then similarly a big factor is that it's not illuminated, because I would imagine that a sign that meets the size requirement but is illuminated would be a lot more imposing on the neighborhood than this flat painted sign angled towards the water.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I would just say that it's not about the degree of nonconformity, it's the principle. So it's okay that it's in such noncompliance because of the unique situation.
Okay, thank you.
So I too had some concerns about this initially, and I've gone back and forth about it, but ultimately I will be supporting this application because I think that it's not clear to me, looking at the zoning ordinance, exactly what the intent is. The intent is for signs to promote the interests of commercial districts. However, it doesn't allow it in the waterfront business, which doesn't make much sense to me, especially since people sometimes approach waterfront businesses from the water. So if the sign were, it's technically a sign because it's painted on. It is big. It is quite big. I think that it is really meant to attract the boaters going to and from. And I personally would not like to see the motion sort of bifurcated. I think we just have to deal with it as a whole, but I will be supporting it. I do tend to be a bit of a stickler with the sign ordinance, as everyone knows, but again, not really knowing the spirit and intent, and also the fact that we are supposed to be supporting waterfront districts. It's not illuminated. It's on the roof. It's not really visible to anybody unless you're going over the Pierce Island Bridge. I will support it.
I will also support this motion, but I will say you can certainly see it from Mechanic Street because I walked by there today. However, we spoke of the Pierce Island boat ramp, but the boats that stay at Prescott Park, many of whom are first-time people to the area, I think this will really be an aid for them, and that makes perfect sense to me. I agree with Mr. Rossi. I do think it's kind of charming, actually, and a bit old-fashioned. And even though you can see it from Mechanic Street, it does not stand out. Are there further comments? Okay, then,
The only other comment I have is next time I will try to use better vocab words for Mr. Regan.
I don't know, it didn't quite do the trick. Could you add more syllables?
I'll just add one more thing. I mean, charming is not one of our criteria, and that's, I'm not judging this against the waterfront business district, what the applicant is trying to do. I'm judging it against our ordinance and our criteria that are set up, and I just think it's way outside. I think there's some room here that we could potentially go back if the applicant had come to us ahead of time. I think that they would have ended up with something very different. I just think that we're being presented with something that's a fait accompli and we're buying into it. That's all.
Anybody else? Okay. The vote. Mr. Neese?
No.
Mr. Mannell?
Yes.
Ms. Margison?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
No.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so you are approved.
Where are you?
Look at the wrong people. You were nodding happily to different
nodding at this side of the room.
So now we are on,
I'm recused from the next application.
okay. So we're on 558 Islington Street. Ms. Record, you will be voting on this, okay? The request is from the Dreyer Family Revocable Trust for property located at 558 Islington Street, whereas relief is needed to allow a salon which requires the following. 1, special exception from section 10.440, use number 7.20, to allow a personal services use where it is allowed by special exception. Said property is located on Assessor Map 156, Lot 23, and lies within the Character District 4-L2, CD 4-L2, and Historic Districts. Is there anyone to speak to this?
Okay. How close should I be? Is this good?
Excuse me?
Is this good for like volume?
Maybe a little bit louder, and tell us who you are.
Okay. Hi, my name is Erica Perkins, and I'm here today to present 558 Islington Street for a special exception land use application for my future salon. I'm requesting a change in the land use to personal service so that I can move forward with construction. As a resident of the West End, I'm excited to bring a small community-focused business to the neighborhood I already call home. The salon will offer relaxing hair services in an intimate setting, just 1 or 2 guests at a time. This setup will help maintain a quiet and respectful atmosphere and avoid any disruption to parking or traffic flow, either on Islington or in the designated parking area. Thank you for the time and consideration. I look forward to the opportunity to become a part of the business community in a meaningful way.
I'm going to ask something of you, which you don't have to agree to do.
Sure.
There are criteria for the special
Yeah.
exception, and we are going to ask you about each of those. So
Okay.
if you would like to tell us how your proposal meets those, that would be welcome.
Okay, so the 2.1, compliance with ordinance standards. Velvet Vine, which is the salon, meets all zoning ordinance requirements for a special exception. The salon is permitted within the existing zoning district, and the proposed use aligns with the city's requirements for the district it is in. 2.2, no hazard to public or adjacent property. The project has been designed to eliminate risks related to fire, explosion, or toxic materials. No hazardous materials will be stored or used on site. 2.3, no detriment to property values or neighborhood character. This project will enhance rather than detract from the neighborhood's character and property value. Noise level is minimum to none. The storefront window will be tastefully designed. No outdoor lighting will create glare to passing cars. 2.4, no traffic safety hazards or excessive congestion. The dedicated parking lot with 2 designated spots for the salon and close street parking will not disrupt the flow of traffic on any nearby street. Additionally, with 1 to 2 clients in the salon at one time, there is no hazard to traffic or excessive congestion with the designated 2 parking spots for the salon. Also to add, about a quarter of clients will walk to the salon for their appointment, freeing up more space. With each diagonal space measuring at 8.5 by 19, there are 8 spaces available on the side of the building and 2 tandem spaces in the back of the building measuring at 8.5 by 20. With that being said, there is only 1 car for each resident, which means there will always be empty spaces within the lot. 2.5, no excess demand on municipal services. The salon will not create an excessive burden on city services. With low client volume, the salon will have minimal impact on water sewage usage, waste disposal, and public safety resources. Also, parking demand will be easily accommodated by on-site parking lot and nearby free parking, ensuring no strain on city infrastructure. And then the 2.6, no significant increase in stormwater runoff. Velvet Vine will not contribute to a significant increase in stormwater runoff, as no major exterior modifications or expansions to the building or pavement are planned. The existing drainage infrastructure at 558 Islington Street is sufficient to manage normal rainfall, and the salon operations will not add any water-intensive processes that could impact water runoff levels.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Mr. Meese.
Thank you. I just have one question. In your package, there's a note here that you've got permission for driveway use from 566 Islington Street.
Yeah.
Do you have anything, an email or anything like that from them that
I
states
don't.
this?
Sorry. No, I actually don't. I talked to my landlord, and she told me that they gave her permission, and it's been like that since they've been there.
Do you have that in writing from the landlord?
I don't have that in writing, no.
Thank you.
Mr. Ram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so my only concern, I think your application is great in virtually every respect other than this question about the parking, and I'm not quite sure why your application goes into it in detail. I guess a question for city staff would be, I'm not sure, is this something that came up when this was originally brought forward? The question about the fact that the driving lane to access all the slash parking apparently resides on another property?
No, it did not come up initially.
Okay. So I guess my first question is why did you go into some length about that? And
About the other location or the other?
well, the fact that so you're counting on 8 of the 10 spots, of which you have 2 assigned and are most convenient to your business, are these slash parking spots, which are in fact accessible only by traversing across a neighboring property from the looks of it.
Yeah. Sorry, what's your question?
So my first question is why did you include information about that in your application?
When I came to have a meeting about this application, I was told that parking would be a really big factor within this application being approved. So I included a lot of information about that because I wanted to make sure it was very visible within the application. And then with the other location, with me driving on the other location, I was told that I should add that in there.
Okay. Was you? Okay. So, and I appreciate your thoroughness and your honesty. I guess my question is, I understand the concept that the neighboring property has given permission, or we've always done it this way. But I guess in terms of a legal requirement, we don't have anything that's signed, notarized, or more importantly, realistically, the only thing that can truly give relief is an easement. And now, are you aware of any easement on the neighboring property that allows use by your landlords or your potential future landlord to make use of that piece of property to access those parking spots?
I'm not aware of any easement, but I can certainly check on it with her.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Yes, Mr. Rossi.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application with the provision that would not be effectuated until satisfactory documentation is provided to the planning department for permission to access those parking spaces, either via an easement or a written letter from the neighboring property owner.
Okay, I'm sorry, I should have asked for a second before I let you.
Oh, sorry.
Is it-
That was the motion.
Okay,
Second.
okay,
So that's my proviso.
okay, okay. And that is a motion from you?
That is my
Okay,
motion. Yeah.
good. And you are the second again. Okay, any discussion for the questions? Let me just ask, he has to speak to the criteria. I just would like to ask Peter if that seems reasonable to you, to have
Certainly,
that
yeah.
proviso
Yeah.
before we go forward. Okay, I know we've done similar things, but, okay, Mr. Rossi, if you could speak to the criteria.
Okay, I have to scroll back to find the criteria again. Okay, so standards is provided by the ordinance. This type of use is permitted by special exception in this zone, so that item 1 is satisfied. Item 2, no hazard to the public or adjacent property on account of potential fire, explosion, release of toxic materials. It's a salon. It's inherently devoid of such hazards and doesn't present new hazards that are probably already likely in the area due to the fact that there's a barber shop also in this building, similar use. No detriment to property values in the vicinity. Again, there's a barber shop already there. This is commercial space, and I would not expect any. There's no change to the outside of the structure needed to accommodate this use. And so it really doesn't change the existing conditions and presents no hurdle for property values in the vicinity. No creation of traffic safety hazard or substantial increase in the level of traffic. I think this question boils down to the parking, which was also what was on my mind as well. I think Mr. Ayum articulated it quite well. Nonetheless, I think the provision of providing satisfactory documentation to the planning department for a written documentation to assure that this property will have access to those /parking spaces will allow me to feel comfortable that this criterion is also satisfied. Will not present any new demands on municipal services. It's not going to generate a ton of wastewater or sewage, no big waste disposal situation. Police or fire protection, schools, et cetera, should be unimpacted by this use. No significant increase in stormwater. Again, the outside of the building, the exterior is not being altered in any way, so there's no change in stormwater runoff or the ability to handle that runoff. And that is my complete motion.
Okay, does the second have anything to add?
Tom's said most of what I was going to say. For the longest time, up until COVID, this was a barber shop. I mean, for 30 years. And I don't recall the abutting neighbor, Dr. Clarizio, has complained about any parking in this thing. So, yeah, I will support this motion.
Okay. Discussion, I'm sorry, yes, Mr. Neese.
So I intend to support the motion in large measure because of the way Mr. Rossi worded it. And I just want to emphasize that I'm really in favor of his or other suitable documentation. I would hate to impose a requirement to actually get an easement. There's legal costs involved with that. So I'm hoping that the planning department, when they review this information, or the inspection department, whoever, or the permitting department, whoever reviews it, is not going to ignore the specific language of Mr. Rossi's motion.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
wanted to emphasize that
Thank you.
point.
Mr. Ram?
So I think that what the applicant is trying to do is fine. I think they're meeting all the criteria of the special exception, assuming that this parking is truly available like has been presented here. My concern is, and it really isn't an issue for the applicant, it's really the applicant's potential future landlord who has apparently been using this parking to their advantage for many years, and perhaps with the current owner of the neighboring property being perfectly fine with it. That said, we are always granting variances and special exceptions that run with the land. This is something that goes beyond this particular decision tonight. It is something that is has ramifications long to the future. The neighboring property could decide tomorrow, I mean, even if they sign, the current owner signs off on something, a future owner, or even the current owner could change their mind and suddenly sign off on saying, hey, you know what, I actually want to build something over here. You know, this is important to my property. I want to put a air conditioning, whatever they want to do in that space. So I'm very hesitant to say that or something else would in fact be adequate. That said, I would feel more comfortable with a postponement to give the planning department time to go back to work with the legal department to come back with a recommendation to the board on the most appropriate way to resolve this. And maybe there is something short of an easement that would be legally acceptable that they could work out. But, and I appreciate Mr. Rossi trying to be, you know, proactive and helping this person out, and I have empathy for that as well. I just think that what's been brought up here is a very tangled legal situation that we need more counsel on to be able to say, especially if we're putting in a stipulation to this effect, which I think is represents our hesitation to really approve this, and kind of putting the planning department in kind of a bind with saying, well, I think this is legally okay or not legally okay. I would rather see it up front. So that's my thoughts.
Other discussion? Okay. I'm going to call through the motion, and we'll see if it is passed, much like we did with Mr. Neese's motion before, okay? And then, I'm sorry, if it passes, then it will pass, and if not, we can consider Mr. Rayum's suggestion.
Yeah, I didn't make a motion.
No, I know, but I'm saying this is a
Right, but
concern
it's a
for you, and
fallback.
I'm trying to
It's not an
acknowledge
unreasonable
that.
fallback position.
Okay. So any further discussion? Okay, so a yes vote allows this special exception. Ms. Record? Yes. Mr. Neese?
Yes?
Oh, goodness sake, yeah.
Yes.
You, Mr. Rayum?
No.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So
6-1.
we will need that reassurance, though, that information. Okay. Okay, thank you. I can't hear you from there. You
Just follow up with the planning department.
Planning, yeah. Okay, the next item of business is The request of Freeze JL and Reeks, Reichs JD Revocable Trust owners and Kimberly Boulevong and Matthew Myers applicants for property located at 205 Bartlett Street, whereas relief is needed to allow a barber shop, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.440, use number 7.20, to allow a personal services use where it is not allowed. Said property is located on Assessor Map 162, Lot 33, and lies within the General Residence A District. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
It's me.
Welcome.
Can I adjust this? Oh,
Yeah.
great. Hi, Madam Chair and members of the board. Before I got started, I just wanted to hand out the floor plan that I submitted as supplemental information to our package.
You may. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Boulevong, and I am the applicant. Myself and my husband are the applicants and co-owners of the Blind Finch Barber Shop. We are hoping to have our variance approved today, so that way, sorry, I'm just going to adjust this. We're hoping to have our variance approved so that we can begin work on opening a barber shop at the property located at 205 Bartlett Street. On the second page of our submission package, you'll see that we have the owner authorization by Jeannie and Jeremy, who are also here today, just giving us permission to be able to move forward with this variance application and to use their space commercially as a barbershop if the variance is approved. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Kim Boulevong, and myself and my husband, Matthew Myers, are residents of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And we're really looking forward to the opportunity to open a small business and really add to the community in whatever ways we can. So just a little bit about the Blind Finch. What we're hoping for this barbershop to be is a community-focused barbershop where we really want to bring the old traditions of a barbershop where it's a place to gather and really share information, hang out, spend time with your neighbors, really talk about the happenings of the town. And as you may know, barbershops have a long history of being hubs of gathering, and we're really hoping to stay true to that tradition. So in addition to this, I just wanted to say a little bit about what we're proposing for the barbershop itself. What we're proposing is a 2-chair barbershop, which is really small. And if you go to page 5 of our submission package, that's just a little more additional business information. So as a rundown, what we're planning to do is operate as a appointment-driven barbershop, meaning appointments are preferred, but walk-ins will be taken on an availability basis, essentially. We're hoping to have our hours of operation be as follows. Closed on Sunday and Monday, Tuesday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this is in a concentrated effort to not be disruptive to the neighborhood where the property is located. In terms of parking, the parking requirement in terms of off-street parking is met as defined by the City of Portsmouth, and I'm happy to address any concerns about that as I finish my presentation. And just a little bit in terms of the amount of people we might expect within the space. Given it's a 2-chair barbershop that we're operating on a primarily appointment-driven basis, we expect that the max number of people we'd see in the property itself would probably be 6 people. So 2 barbers who are actively working, 2 clients in the chair getting services done, and potentially 2 clients waiting for services to be done. And this is just a little breakdown of the services that we're offering. So haircuts, skin fades, beard trims, hot lather shaves. So again, the property at 205 Bartlett Street is currently in a GRA zoning district, but it's been primarily used as a commercial space as long as the property has been around since the 1950s. So I think if you go to page 4 of the submission package, you'll see that there's just an outline of how this space has been used, and it's been primarily commercial, which actually in 1960 it was, or 1961, it was actually a barbershop back in the day. And I believe Roger was the one who actually split the property to have the 3 Clinton Street resident unit as well. So, despite it being in a residential zoning district, even the last 2 tenants of the property have used this commercially, being West End Eye Care, and then prior to that, Jeannie ran her upholstery business out of there as well. So, sorry, I'm just a little nervous.
You're doing very well.
So that's just a little bit about our shop that we hope to open there and the history itself. So just as another note, per suggestion by the planning department, we did have a pre-inspection with the inspection and fire department just to see if there were any glaring issues we might need to face prior to submitting our variance. So we're really committed to doing our due diligence to make sure we're covering all of our bases here. So again, if we're approved with this variance, we hope to bring a really high quality barbershop to the neighborhood and add it as an amenity, be a place where people can come together, connect, and really gather as a community, and also have a well-maintained business that isn't a vacant storefront as it is today. So I will just go into the analysis criteria, which I know is very important for us. So we believe our application meets the criteria necessary for the board to hopefully grant us the variance. So I'll just kind of go down the list here. So section 10.233.2 and also 10.233.21. The proposed barbershop does not conflict with the explicit or implicit purpose of the ordinance. Using this property as a barbershop will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, as we're not planning to make any exterior type of changes to as it exists today. We don't believe it'll threaten public health, safety, or welfare, or injure public rights. As barbershops are regulated and required to pass inspection by the Board of Barbering, Cosmetology, and Aesthetics, we believe there's no threat to public health, safety, or welfare. Section 10.233.23, substantial justice will be done. There's no harm to the general public or to other individuals. As a 2-chair appointment-driven barbershop, the likelihood of enormous foot traffic or client traffic would be relatively low. We will operate our shop during reasonable hours as to not disrupt the neighborhood. Section 10.233.24, the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. Opening a barbershop in this location would not diminish the value of surrounding properties, but rather add an amenity to those in the neighborhood. Again, this property has been primarily used as a commercial space, and a barbershop would continue to enrich the neighborhood. And the last criteria here, section 10.233.25, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. The property currently is burdened by the existing zoning restrictions in that it has been primarily used as a commercial space. In this neighborhood, other properties are already used as residences with a kitchen and a full bathroom. This property cannot reasonably be used as a residence for which it is currently zoned for, for which it is currently zoned for in its current state, as there are no kitchen or full bathroom. To make it livable as a residence would require unnecessary hardship. And I think that covers everything, I hope.
You did a good job.
Thank
Are there
you.
questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Ram.
Thank you. On page 96 of our packet, it's page 2 of your application. You say that the applicants, yourself and Matthew Myers, are tenants of this property. Are you implying that you also occupy the residential portion of it, or just using the business?
Yeah, that was probably a typo on my piece, but we would be the people leasing the property. I think I might have just put tenant as a mistake in there. Yeah.
Sure. I guess my question is are you leasing the entire structure, including the living quarters, or are you just leasing the business portion?
Oh, I understand. Just the business portion is what we would be leasing as our barbershop.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Then the public hearing is closed. Yes, Mr. Neese.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance for the application as presented and advertised.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think the application is very straightforward. I'm going to go through their criteria, so it's on the record, but to be honest, the applicant covered most of what I'm going to say. Granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. There's no evidence that it will affect the health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood. They're not changing the structure. It's not going to have any effect on light and air. It's not going to change the essential characteristics of the neighborhood, which is a residential area with some occasional businesses sprinkled in throughout it already. It does not, granting the variance will observe the spirit of the ordinance. It's true that this is a non-permitted use, but it remains consistent with the goal of the area to be residential with limited services, light commercial services, if you will. This is a very small barber shop. Granting the variance will do substantial justice. I don't see any benefit to the public that would outweigh the loss to the applicant by denying this variance request. It will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. There's been no evidence presented that the commercial, that it will. It has been used commercially for an extensive period of time and has not, no one has complained that it's diminishing the value. This is a pretty light use. Literal enforcement would result of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. The property has several special conditions. First off, it's on a small corner lot. Secondly, the building itself is probably less than 1,000 square feet. The unit that is the variance is being requested for is probably the order of 200 square feet. There's really no effective way to turn that particular unit into a residential space. As was pointed out, there's no kitchen, there's no full bathroom, and it's extremely tiny, even by today's standards. Owing to those conditions, I don't think there's any fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the ordinance and the application to the specific property.
Thank you. Does the second have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add in, I know I was involved with the last time that somebody came before us for getting permission to put a business in this particular structure. This is kind of like a leftover from a period of time where small little grocery stores and neighborhood stores were very, very common. We still see a few examples of this throughout the city. I know in my neighborhood, the Cabot Street Market is an unpermitted use, would not be permitted if it was trying to set up today, but is one of those historical little small markets that continues to serve in that function. Though it's not specifically for that purpose anymore, it is still a little commercial space. The property directly across the street on Clinton Street was a commercial space for many years as well. So I think that this little area here and the small size of it, it really is still fundamentally in keeping with what the general residence A is trying to accomplish. I think the parking is, they are meeting the requirement, and then there is, plenty of on-street parking in that particular location because, again, there's not really like close and intensive residential uses where you would say, hey, they might be taking up that parking. I think there's a few spots there if they had an extra customer or a customer overlap. There's plenty of parking available for that to occur. So with that, I recommend approval.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Rossi.
Ultimately, I will be supporting the motion. However, there are a couple of things that I think are maybe important to note just for consistency and potential future reference. I don't completely buy the argument that this space cannot be used for a residential application. I know it's small, but there is such a thing as an efficiency apartment that is generally occupies a space about this size. And with the push for affordable housing in Portsmouth, encouraging the development of efficiency apartments is not contrary to the direction that the town could be going in. However, it has been traditionally used commercially, and so I will support the motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ready to vote? Okay. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Yes.
No, don't tell me. Mr. Mannel, I've known you for years. Ms. Margerson?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Rossi,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. You are approved. But can I just ask, Blind Finch?
No particular reason.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Cool name.
It is.
They posted for our social media.
Okay, thank you. All right. And the next item of business is the request of Alexander Nancy H. Revocable Trust owners for property located at 620 Beverly Hill Road, whereas relief is needed for a change of use to allow a health club. That requires the following special exception from section 10.440. Use number 4.42, to allow a health club greater than 2,000 square feet gross floor area. Said property is located on Assessor Map 254, Lot 6, and lies within the industrial district. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
Thank you for your time. My name is Troy Collins. I'm a commercial real estate owner at 175 Market Street, number 103, and I'm a resident of Hampton, New Hampshire. Come before you today to ask for a special exception for a health club, a gym, a place for people to come and exercise at 620 Beverly Hill Road in Portsmouth. Before I get into every section of the standard, I just want to hit some bullet points. We believe the current property is a great place to house this gym because the current businesses there are Johnson Paint, High Definition Fitness, and Portsmouth Aikido, which is a martial arts type studio. The High Definition Fitness is personal training, so us having an open style gym where people can come freely work out as they wish kind of complements those things perfectly. We're also really close to the YMCA on 550 Beverly Hill Road, so it really kind of make it like a fitness center almost. The space is 4,000 square feet. Our peak hours offset with some of the businesses on the premises, and therefore the parking arrangement will be adequate. It currently has 60 spots and it's underutilized. And in our lease agreement, we're actually going to have a total of 10 spots reserved just for us. So we'll go into standard 232.21 standards as provided by this ordinance for the particular use permitted by special exemption. Section 10.440 use number 4.42 is permitted in an industrial zone by special exemption. 10.232.22 no hazard to the public or adjacent property on account of potential fire, explosion, or release of toxic materials. It's a fitness club, so there's no flammables, no combustibles used in this type of thing. No determinant to property values in the vicinity or change in essential characteristics of any, including residential neighborhoods or businesses. It's in an industrial park. Excuse me, let me finish reading the standard here. So, no determinant to property values in the vicinity or change in the essential characteristics of any area, including residential neighborhoods or business and industrial districts on account of the location or scale of buildings and other structures. Parking areas, access ways, odor, smoke, gas, dust, or pollutant, noise, glare, heat, vibration, or unsightly odor, storage of equipment, vehicles, or other materials. Gym 1's proposed use of the existing enclosed interior space will not change the appearance or the physical exterior building. The building currently has two similar health clubs. The surrounding area has various different types of retail locations. Also, as I mentioned, the YMCA across the street. So this Gym 1 will fit in perfectly with that. And we don't have the use of odors, smoke, gas, stuff like that. No creation of traffic safety hazard or substantial increase in the level of traffic congestion in the vicinity. With 60 parking spaces available on the site, there is sufficient parking for the current tenants as well as Gym 1 members. Also, the hours of operation of the current tenants at 620, Beverly Hill Road and Gym 1 will have very limited overlap. In fact, the paint store closes at 5, and the data shows with fitness clubs the busiest hours are from 5 to 6 p.m. No excess demand municipal services including, but not limited to, water, sewer, waste, disposal, police and fire protection, and schools. So Gym 1 will function similar to Aikido and high-definition fitness clubs currently existing in the building. No real extra demand on water or anything like that. We're adding 2 extra fixtures. There's an existing 2 fixtures there already, or 4 fixtures there already. No significant increase of stormwater runoff onto adjacent property. We're not changing the exterior. No excessive demand on municipal services, including but not limited to water, sewer, waste, disposal, police and fire protection, and schools. Gym 1 will function similar to the businesses currently there that are also offering fitness type services. No significant increase of stormwater runoff into adjacent property or streets. Did I already read that one possibly? But
okay.
Not changing the exterior.
It's fine.
Thank you.
Questions for the petitioner? Yes.
Yeah, so about how many patrons can your health club
That's a great
accommodate?
question. So we have a target, actually, we have a target gym membership of 400 members, and the data shows by looking at examples of other health clubs that we should expect a maximum attendance during peak busy hours of about 9.
9 out of 400?
Mm-hmm.
So those are aspirational members.
Yeah.
What kind of health club services will your club offer?
Actually, it is an open style gym, so it doesn't offer personal training. It doesn't offer anything other than you get a membership, you can go there and you can work out using free weights, using machines, using cardio equipment, etc.
So there won't be classes there, per
There
se?
won't be classes, no.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So let's see if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of this. You may sit. You can sit. Who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Who would like to speak? Anyone in opposition? Anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Public hearings. I know. All right. A motion?
I've done the work already. that
You
I'm
really
gonna
have
do.
done a great job. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant the special exception as advertised and presented.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Oh,
She got it.
okay, you can have it, Ms. Murchison.
Thank you, I have not talked tonight.
This is your,
Well, a little bit.
this is
I
your
have.
gift. Okay.
Once again, this is a straightforward request. Going through the criteria, the standard is provided by the ordinance for the particular use permitted by special exception. There really are no there are no real standards in the ordinance for this particular use, so it's easy to meet those. It is not going to create any hazard to the public or adjacent property. This is a gym. The work goes on inside. There's no debris or anything that's going to create any hazards. In this area, which is primarily sort of a mixed industrial services area, there's been no evidence presented that they'll have any detriment to any property values in the area, and it's not going to change the essential characteristics of the area or the neighborhood. There's no structures, parking areas, access ways, odor, smoke, gas, dust, pollutant. Any of the stuff that's listed in the criteria is not going to be developed by this use. Beverly Hill Road is a little bit of a busy area, but there's no evidence that this is going to create any additional traffic that's substantial increase. As the applicant pointed out, it looks like the typical high use is 9 people in there. Even if it's double that, that's still not a very extensive increase in traffic. So there'll be no congestion in the area. It's not going to create any other demands on municipal services. This is a very small operation. It's not going to overburden, hopefully not police, but certainly not fire protection, water or sewer, or anything like that. There's no changes to the exterior, so there will be no change or no significant increase anyway of stormwater runoff onto adjacent property or streets. Therefore, I think all the criteria have been met to grant the special exception.
Okay, thank you. Does the second have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Then we will vote. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
Oh, me? Yes.
Did you forget
Good
your
job.
own name this time?
Good job. Paul, please, what do you have to say?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Marginson?
Yes.
Mr. Ram?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, you are approved. You're welcome.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.